Hello and welcome to our Tag1 Team Talk on Laravel, from the evolution of monolithic applications to the revolution of fully decoupled systems. I'm Michael Myers, the Managing Director of Tag1 Consulting, and I'm joined today by Laszlo Horvath, one of our senior software engineers. Laszlo, thank you so much for joining us. We broke today's talk down into three segments. This is part one, where Laszlo and I are going to talk about Laravel in general and just give you a quick overview. Be sure to check out part two, the evolution of web development from monolithic apps to fully decoupled systems, and part three, the future of application development in Laravel. All right, let's jump in. Stepping back, Laszlo, I don't think all of our listeners are familiar with Laravel. I think it'd be really helpful to give people an overview at a high level. What is Laravel?
So Laravel is currently the most popular PHP framework. So to contrast it with Drupal or WordPress, something that the listeners may be more familiar with. It's not like a CMS system or a content management system. It's really a fully fledged framework. So it exists alongside Symfony and CodeIgniter as maybe the most popular PHP frameworks out there. Currently, I think it has 4 times the downloads that Symfony has. So it's currently really the most popular framework out there. I read some interesting statistics, and basically in all areas of application, so business, marketing, e-commerce, you name it, it's currently the most popular framework. Only in the healthcare system, so in the health, Symfony is more popular. Which is really an interesting thing for me, because I try to wrap my head around it. So why would, in all the other areas, it's basically the same ratio, so about 3 times as used as Symfony, and somehow in healthcare, Symfony is like dominating. But yeah, that's it. So basically, it exists as long as Symfony does. So but they both started in 2011, and it grew in popularity in the last couple of years. So it has a really vibrant ecosystem, and I think what really separates it from the others is it has a massive and really great documentation and a great general experience about how you can learn things, where you can look things up. They have Laracasts, they have a bunch of useful podcasts where you can learn about new things. They have Twitter accounts where they publish like interesting tidbits where you can just read like a tweet of like 120 characters and you can learn something interesting. So this is what really keeps the community engaged, and through this they manage to build an ecosystem where the community contributes with great packages, with great extensions, with things like this, where the core team, actually the core team is like 10% of the Symfony core team. So the Symfony core team is more than 2,000 people who are involved, and the Laravel core team is like 200 something contributors. So it's not really that big, but the ecosystem around it is so nicely developed that people are contributing from all areas, and then in the end you get a much better experience. And basically whatever you need, you can find a really recognized version, because generally the problem is when you're using something, like what to choose, which package to choose. Is it well maintained? What's it like? Is it covered with tests? Is the coverage okay? You usually pick like, okay, this is mostly used, this has the most installs, this has the most feedback, stars, whatever, on GitHub, or installs on Composer, and then you pick it like that. And here, generally Laravel, it's somehow it just like weeds itself out, and then you just know like which packages are the best. Plus there are some officially maintained packages as extensions to the core framework which you can use, and this just that whatever you use, it feels the same. So whatever you take from the extensions, from contributed stuff from the community, it still feels like Laravel. It still feels the same. You still write it the same way, you use the same things, and you can just jump in and be productive straight away.
It's interesting. I knew that Laravel was really popular. I didn't realize how much more popular than Symfony it was. That's pretty astounding. And as someone who does a lot of work with open source and open source communities, it's amazing to see that such a small group of people are having such an impact. Typically in a large project, a small number of people are contributing the majority of the changes, but it's interesting how small the overall community is. There must be
Yeah,
a
yeah,
larger number of people making changes. I want to
yeah,
dig into that and learn more.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
So I had an experience. Sorry to interrupt you. Where like I was trying to do something to make a change on the DB schema through Laravel. I stumbled upon a bug. So I actually submitted a PR to the core team where we fixed it was using Doctrine in the background to generate the schema changes, so the alter statements. And basically we figured out, I had a colleague and we fixed it together. We submitted a PR, and basically a small change of a couple of lines of code. They really looked at it, they really analyzed it, and we had to write tests, we had to cover everything. So it was, it was a bit stressful because, for a change of a couple of lines of code where we took 2 hours to figure out what the problem is and 1 minute to fix it, in the end we had like 3 days worth of work because we need to really make sure that it was perfect. And I think that speaks to the overall quality of the software. I like to dive in, so everything I use, I do a deep dive so that I know what it's like. I extended Doctrine, I extended Symfony core components, so I really know my way around them. And for me, the best experience, the most consistent experience is Laravel. You can find beautiful code in all of them. There are people who write amazing code, but then there's sometimes, okay, let's get this done, let's get this fixed, and maybe you overlook something, you don't do such a good job in the code review phase, and then some bad code sneaks in. I've seen bad code basically all over the place, but in Laravel it's not perfect, but it's really consistently good. And I like it because I want the things I use to be consistent and to be reliable. And this is from my experience. Like really, I used to be a huge Symfony fan because I come from an engineering background. So I have a master's degree and everything. But for me, it's like it was eye-opening once I put my biases aside and said, okay, now let's give it a chance, and really dived into it. I was amazed, and since then I really love it. So
I hear people say that a lot. So it's a framework used by pretty much every industry pervasively. Is there, how are people using it? Can you give us some examples of?
yeah, so it used to be like if you want to do, I don't know, if you want to create APIs, for example, then you take Symfony because it has API platform, it has a bunch of cool extensions, and it's really structured in a way so that it's easy to use it like that. And if you mean like this, if it's used like for decoupled things, for normal old school web development, it's basically now used in every form and fashion. So as I said, it has a really cool extension. So from web shops to from e-commerce to really huge B2B and ERP systems, it's used everywhere. It used to be that notion that Symfony is more for business like software where you need structure and you need to make sure that everything is correct. But now that has shifted entirely, and like Laravel is taking over basically, as I said, in almost all areas except healthcare. So I'm not sure what's going on there. Maybe it would be interesting to figure out why that's happening. But yeah, it's used as primarily as a so web development framework. Basically, people use it mostly as in a normal standard tightly coupled way where you basically do server-side rendering for everything. But in the last couple of years, since the whole expansion began and we started decoupling things and doing more like front-end stuff and communication with the API and everything, they really integrated. This was, I think, the best move they did, that they integrated with the correct technologies, and they did a really great integration with everything. So now people are using it like that as well. So we've done a project actually in Tag1 like that, where we had Laravel backend and Vue.js as the front end. So it's now basically same as every other framework. You can use it in every which way you want it.
You talked about a lot of advantages, consistent feel across it, awesome documentation, code quality. What else? Like, how does it affect, say, like development experience or, the speed of processes?
Yeah, so it's really because it has this consistent feel to it, and it is actually consistent all across the board. It's much faster than developing in other frameworks. At least that was my experience. So, if you want to do something, you do it and it's there. It's very easy. So it helps you, like it has a lot of they used to say like it's a framework for web artisans, and really it is like that, because it takes away a lot of things that are, a lot of configuration, a lot of things that you would normally do maybe in other frameworks. It just does it for you. It helps out a lot, and you can really just jump in and code, and that really helps. Plus, of course, if you have any questions, you need to look something up. The documentation is extensive. You have a bunch of Laracasts. You can look things up. It's really a good experience. So, that thing when you need to, I don't know, you need to do something quickly. For example, you have like one user story that you need to develop, and the user story is maybe a couple of hours long. Like if I have to do it in Symfony, I would have to, I wouldn't say, I wouldn't struggle, of course, when your experience is not the problem, but you somehow have this block in your head where you're like, okay, I need to do this and this and this, and then you get to the grunt of the work where you need to work actually. And with Laravel, it's like you just jump in and you're done. And somehow this whole process is a lot simpler. This has maybe a negative side to it. And because if you look at projects that are written, for example, in Symfony, people know where to, like the style of the code will be in a certain way. With Laravel, if you know Laravel, if you do it the Laravel way, then it's perfect. But it's so easy to use that you can basically do it whatever way you like. So you may end up with you check two projects and it's like they're different. They're written in totally different things. One of them can look like it's done by an engineer, and the other like an artist. It's totally different. It lets you basically be in charge of how you want to solve things. Which is, of course, it has negative sides as well. But for me, that's great, because you can just jump in and work right away.
Flexibility can be a curse. I grew up 25 years ago with Perl, and
yeah, so
pretty much had the same problem. It was both amazing and infuriating at the same time. I mean, the fact that you can do things so many different ways and so quickly and easily, does this impact security? Like, or if you do things the Laravel way, it's just, taken care of?
Actually, security is pretty, I mean, I never know some like security issues and some holes. Of course, if you don't do it takes away all the necessities where you have to take care of a bunch of security features. So it's really good in that regard. It's as safe as any other systems. It actually relies on some Symfony core components in the background. So it's basically in that regard, it's the same. It's like with everything else. If you don't know what you're doing, it can go wrong. But it actually masks out a lot of issues that you would normally maybe have to take care of yourself. It does it for you. So things like cross-site scripting, SQL injection, stuff like that, you don't have to worry about it at all. So it takes care of all of those things, like on its own. So this most basic stuff will be covered automatically. That's like, I think, the perfect word for it. And the rest you have to take care of on your own, like in any other framework or language.
You mentioned that Laravel is a framework. What does it have any front end components? Is it also a front end application? Is it purely a back end framework? How does?
Well, basically, you can use a lot of variations with Laravel. So it comes out of the box. It comes with the so-called Blade templates. So it now has Blade X as well. So you can choose like what rendering engine you want to use for the front end. It doesn't come with ready-made components, so you're free to choose whatever you want. What's really cool about Laravel is they're now choosing and forcing and really not tightly, but really well integrated with Tailwind CSS. I know we at Tag1 now are also using Tailwind on now across the board, not everywhere, but we're starting to use it. It's really great. I love it. It also adds this layer of consistency everywhere, and I like that they chose that. So as I was saying, you can choose which like engine you want to use for rendering. You can also choose. It's really easy to integrate with both React and Vue.js. So it's also like comes pre-prepared for those front-end frameworks where it really helps out and sort of gets out of the way for you, so you can do your work. So normally if you do like really decoupled apps, you have like on one side you have your backend framework. So you would use Laravel, you would use APIs as endpoints, and the other side you would have a totally different repository with just the front-end code, with maybe even totally different development teams who work on those too. And Laravel is so well integrated with both React and Vue that you don't have to separate them at all. It's just you have your entry point, and then you can work basically on the same code base. So it takes away some of this clutter on its own.
One last question before we jump into the next segment. Are there Laravel being a backend framework, you talked about the difference between, some of the CMSs that are out there. Is there an obvious use case where you would say, Laravel's not a fit, you should be using a CMS? And are there applications that really stand out as, no way should you be using a CMS? A framework like Laravel is the best idea.
So if you need something to really manage content, like you have a strong online presence, you have an internal network where you want to share some things, you have like where you need to really take care of your content, then you need to use a CMS. So Drupal is perfect for that. I don't think there's anything else better, not just in PHP, but like in any other language. And for that, it's not Laravel, because you would need to do all that on your own. There are some CMSs in Laravel. I think the most popular is October CMS. I actually did some extensions for it a while back. It was fine, but it's really not popular. So, Laravel is, if you want to do something from scratch, if you need to implement something, you take Laravel and you just do it. And you implement it in Laravel. That's basically the way it goes. So my answer would be, if you need to implement something, you have custom logic, you have some requirements, and it's not about managing content. It's not about just content on a website. It's really about like some business logic. It's about calculations. Whatever you do, it's a good choice. If you are about content, if you really need to manage content, and as I said, you have a strong online presence or something, then you need something like Drupal. That would be the biggest difference. So Drupal has everything out of the box. You can basically not be a developer and already have a website. And with Laravel, it's like you can only use it as a developer. So
awesome. Well, that was fantastic. I really appreciate you giving us an overview. I'm eager to jump into, monolithic applications and decoupled systems and the future of development in Laravel. And those two segments are coming up. If you liked this talk, please remember to upvote, subscribe, and share it with your friends. You can check out past team talks at tag1.com/Tag1 TeamTalks, where we'd love your feedback on this segment and episode, as well as future topic ideas. You can write us at Tag1 TeamTalks at tag1consulting.com. Huge thank you to you, Laszlo, and to everybody who tuned in. We'll see you soon. Thank you.